Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a first here on the Vinny X Wolf YouTube channel. I'm going to be conducting an interview with Amy Tangel. Did I pronounce that right?
Tangel.
Amy Tangel.
I should have told you that before. Sorry.
That's all right. I apologize. A little bit of background. First of all, I grew up next door, as far as next door can go in the Adirondacks, to Amy. However, obviously you had a different last name then, so I apologize for not knowing it.
Macy.
You want to go in a little bit about your background and what led you to where you are in life, basically?
Sure. Well, the short version of the story is I was involved in theater in high school and growing up, and I was always writing my whole life. In fact, since I was in elementary school, I was always writing. And I decided to really make a full-time career of my writing when my children were born is when I started writing my children's books. And Buster's Backpack Adventure was the first one I ever wrote. I went to school, focused on journalism on Long Island at Suffolk County Community College, and I worked for the campus newspaper as a, extracurricular, which was a great experience. And then after I graduated, I became pretty much a full-time freelancer for Patch.com. And I covered all the areas from East Bridgehampton to Montauk for a period of time, which was a lot of great experience. And then that ended. There was big layoffs when Patch was sold. So I went and worked a corporate job doing like technical writing for a few years. And then it was when my mom passed away after that that I really, made the big career change and had my books published and started my website, and here we are today.
Okay, and what is, let's get into your mother's story now. What was your mother's diagnosis?
She was diagnosed with myelofibrosis. It's a rare blood disease. It's so rare that there's very few cases known in the whole world. It's in comparison to other diseases, it's so rare. So her body not make enough platelets. Her blood just became like too thin, and the only possible cure was a bone marrow transplant. It was a very aggressive disease, and she became ill quite quickly. So we didn't have much time. So our answer was for her to leave the Albany area where she had lived for almost 20 years and temporarily come down and live with me. So start receiving treatment at Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital in the city. And that's how that all started.
What was it like when you received the news of your mother's illness?
Well, the night I received her diagnosis, it was an ironically beautiful night for me, living down on Long Island for the past 22 years now. I don't have the luxuries of growing up like we did growing up in the Adirondacks with mountains and lakes and beautiful outdoor scenery and go horseback riding. And my friends had horses at the time, and we had talked about going horse riding forever. And we're just busy life. There was a lot of hours, just never happened. And then we finally did it that night. We went straight from work, went to her house, got on the horses, and we just went in the woods. And I turned off my phone, first time in forever, and put it in the saddlebag and just forgot about it. And it was probably one of the most peaceful moments I had ever had living down on the island. I felt like I was back home. But when we got back to the stable, I turned on my phone and I had all these missed calls and voicemails from my mother and, frantic text messages. And so I called her back from my friend's house farm, and she told me that she had myelofibrosis and, that she was going to have a bone marrow transplant, and she was freaking out, So I instantly, from that moment, went into take care of business mode, take care of mom, take charge. Okay, let's do this. Let's do what we have to do. Let's get you better. get you down here. We'll get whatever treatment you need. But unfortunately, God had other plans.
During the time that she was down there with you, how did you manage to maintain your own family? I don't know if we mentioned yet, but you have 2 children.
Yes.
And
Yeah, my children, I'll tell you this, okay? So my children were teenagers at the time, younger teenagers, and they're just amazing. They're 18 months apart, so it was like having twins with growing up. But they're just such good kids. I mean, I know every parent says that about their children, but they really look out for each other. And so when my mom came to live with us, my mom actually became roommates with my daughter, and they shared a room together, and they would watch movies together because she couldn't really, I mean, she was functioning, but the blood disease caused her so much pain to walk. She had pain. One of the horrible effects of the disease is it causes an enlarged spleen, and it causes so much pain. It just radiated through her whole body. So walking was an issue for her. So she was just, watch her Hallmark movies and do her crocheting and knitting like she always did, and try to move around as much as she could. But her and my daughter, they had some priceless special moments being roommates together, for a period of time. And my daughter learned so much from her during that time. So that was like a huge support. Of course, all my family and friends were so supportive, but you just do it at the moment. You don't think about it. You don't. I mean, I never cried in front of my mother. That was one of my personal rules for myself is she had enough fear. So my job was to help her get better. Crying was not an option in front of my mother. I think maybe one time I got a little emotional, but so then I would cry in the car ride home from the hospital. It was a drive from Manhattan back out to the island. It was long drives, many times commuting. So I would cry then, I'd cry at home. But going through it, it was just whatever I could do to make mom smile, feel better, whatever. I was doing it, and I didn't think about anything else other than that. But it was very difficult now talking about it hindsight. You know what I mean? I don't know how I did it. I think back and I look at it and I say, I don't know how I didn't collapse, with everything. But you get through it, you do what you have to do in the time. And I would do it all over again. And, we were planning for her recovery. She was going to be living with us for, 6 months after that. And when she passed away, she was cancer free. She ultimately passed away from a stroke as a result of the damage from the disease.
I remember going back a little bit, while you're talking, I was remembering a story of your mother. And I don't know how much you remember about when she worked at McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
But I left Burger King and went to McDonald's temporarily. I didn't last very long to be a cashier. And your mother was very helpful and she wanted to make sure that I learned everything. Even though I had put in a 2 weeks notice, she was still trying to teach. And that's one thing I remember about your mother. I then worked with her again a couple years later when I worked for the high school during the summertime. And you had left, I had graduated, and I remember her telling me about how you were doing and all that. And this is after, of course, my mom had passed, which unfortunately I believe was on your mom's birthday, if I remember correctly. And your mom was very supportive during that time because that was obviously a rough time for us. And, the little village we grew up in, and I know I'm rambling here, I'm sorry, but
I love hearing the stories.
The little village we grew up in was really a community, and your mom and dad, my mom and dad were like, neighborhood parents. Your brother would always be over. Hell, I remember your brother spending one Christmas morning with us because you guys had finished early, and he came over to watch us open presents, and it was good times, and definitely. Your mother was well loved and well respected in our town.
Well, thank you. I love hearing those stories from, family and friends and what she meant to them, because it helps her memory live on for us, for my brother
Definitely.
and the kids. And she was always a teacher. That's, she genuinely, she cared about everybody. She genuinely cared about everybody. So, we miss her every day, every single day. And especially now we have new babies in the family, with my brother and his youngest being 4 months old. And that's what we get so sad about mostly, is that the little ones are never going to know her.
Right.
Kids were blessed to have their whole life growing up with her. So I'm so grateful for that. But, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write the book as well.
Yeah. What went into the process of writing your book? What was it like?
Well, Hello Sunshine was something that I wanted to write. I decided I wanted to write this book initially while my mom was still receiving treatment at the hospital. I did feel, even though you kind of go into autopilot in situations like that, I did feel at the time alone as a caregiver, because I did not know anybody else going through what I was going through. So I had nobody to talk to on that level. So I said to myself, there's not a lot of books out there about caregivers and support for caregivers. There's a lot of books for dementia patients, for caregivers of dementia patients, and how to get, a good caregiver for them, or, just an emotional support for the caregiver. But as far as other diseases, there's not too much out there. And all of a sudden, for some reason, in the past few years, doing my research and speaking to other people, I spoke to a marketing agent at BookCon at the Jacob Javits Center last year. I attended, and she said there's been an explosion in the market for books about caregivers for the past few years. And there's really no explanation, but there is some sort of generational change, things where we're becoming caregivers much younger. So that was where it initially started. And then I didn't think about it. And then when she lost her battle, I revisited it initially in my mind and said, I really need to do this now. I really need to tell her story, because her battle was so courageous and so gracious that her story deserved to be told, her fight. So it became that. And then the third and final reason was for my own healing and to help other people, to, kind of ties in with the first point. But all those three things coming together. And then it took me a while. It took me about 3 years to write the book. And as short as the memoir is, it's filled with emotion, with every single word. It was very painful for me to write it many times. There was times that I would have to literally put the pen and the paper down for a month or two and just not write anything, because almost everything I wrote was just digging up everything that I had gone through and all the pain and reliving it. And a lot of, some of my most precious moments ever with my mother came from being her caregiver. It was strange to say it, but people who have been in my situation will understand what I'm saying. It was one of the greatest gifts I could have ever received, was for my mom to choose me to be by her side, to help take care of her through that journey. So it's a mixed bag of emotions, but till it started. And 3 years later, I put it together, and it was released January 27th, I believe, of 2020.
And as you can see, the viewers can see on the screen, I have a picture of the cover for Hello Sunshine
Okay.
and Buster's Backpack. Both books can be found on Amazon, and I will provide links in the description when we're done.
Yes.
So after your book is published, what led to your continued work in your website?
After Hello Sunshine was published, it's been an ironic and strange time as for everybody. I think I'm so grateful for the health of our family, and everybody in my family has done everything in their power to stay safe and do what we need to do. But the release of Hello Sunshine, the timing of it was being January 27th, and I was getting ready. I had to do my big book launch. I had a book launch party at the Cheese Patch in Patchogue, New York, which was wonderful, but it was literally on the eve of the quarantine. It was on March 12th, Thursday, March 12th. So it was literally right before the shutdown. As a matter of fact, that Sunday, which was March 15th, I was supporting one of my other friends and colleagues, Kate Fox. She was putting on a fundraiser for an organization called Cancer Can Rock at Revolution in Amityville. And we've been told it was one of the last music events to be held on Long Island before the shutdown, if not the last. So it was a very strange time. So everything with Hello Sunshine, just like everything else for everybody else in life, got shut down. So my new website, The Human Interest Story, it's www.thehumanintereststory.com. It's something I wanted to do for a long time. I had been working on it for months, actually, on the side, but it was just one of those things that I didn't have I didn't really make the time to put it together. It had been like one of those like fantasy things that I wanted to do, and I knew I would do it eventually. But with the shutdown, I had all the time in the world. And the Human Interest Story is a website where I post weekly articles of amazing people of human interest with incredible stories, doing incredible things, whatever that may be, overcoming adversity or business, or, like my Memorial Day tribute story last week was a piece honoring my great-grandfather and his service and his loss of life in World War II. So I felt like not only having the time to do it, but the timing of it was during this time. There's not enough. We need more happy stories. We need more positivity. We need more enlightening and inspiring things to read. And I felt like that was my contribution to society as well, to start this and get it running during the time I've been home.
Yes, and I will also provide a link to her website in the description that you can click on to go check it out. And there's some very fascinating stories in there.
Yeah, it's been really exciting. I'm sorry, I just want to say it's really exciting because it's just been so amazing to watch. I'm in my third month now of weekly stories, how it's evolved already, and the stories these incredible stories. Every week I'm blown away by another person's story.
That's awesome. Do you want to relate a story or a synopsis of something that we can find on your website?
Okay, sure. So I'll just give you a little brief rundown of the story so far. People might be interested in checking out. The first story, my launch week, I had two stories. And the first one was of a 12-year-old girl in my community who had started sewing when she was only 6 years old. Her name's Madison Eddington. And when the shutdown started, she just on her own had all this material before people were even making masks at home, might I add. She started making masks and just, having people pick them up on her doorstep, family, friends, that word spread. her father had put it on one of the community pages, and I picked up on the story. And he was a mutual friend with one of my good friends, so it was an easy reach out. And he, I said, I'd love to interview your daughter. If I have your permission, you could speak with me, which we did. The story, I spoke to the school district, and they contributed to that story. And this little girl, the story came out, and it exploded. She was getting requests from everybody. She was running out of material and all that other stuff. So it was a really exciting thing to see that for that little girl, because it gave her inspiration that hopefully is, her community service is going to pay forward for a long time to come for her. So things like that. All my stories, I write with all my heart. I see, I try to pull like the true heart, the true soul of the person. That's what it's about. The stories are really about the person, not so much of what they're doing, but just who they are and how they're doing it and how they're achieving these things. And then, I had Sunny and Dew, which is a all handmade skincare line on Long Island. A woman started this business herself, makes everything by hand, and her business has taken off over the past few years. It's been Best of Long Island, Best of Long Island a few years in a row. The products are amazing. So I also support stories where fundraisers, somebody's doing something. I wrote a story about a caregiver movement that's been started during this time. A woman who is a cancer survivor, and she has a cancer support organization called Stepping Stone Support. She started a movement to allow a caregiver, one person per family, to be with their family member while they're in the hospital, in the nursing homes. It's a horrible situation that's going on right now with all these people in hospitals and nursing homes, and they're all alone. And as a caregiver, I can't imagine if my mother was in the hospital right now, or anybody that I loved, or my daughter or my son, and I could not be in the hospital with them right now. So this woman started this initiative and a petition, to make the change moving forward if this ever happens again, or if this continues, for, it to be allowed to have one caregiver per family to be with the patients. So that's a really important story. So there's always a purpose. This week's story was about a bartender who is a career bartender on Long Island, and she is cute as a button, and she is a 47-year-old mother with 2 teenage boys who, during this time at home, took her time at home and did something that she had been wanting to do for a long time, and started creating these simple syrups that you can use to mix cocktails, marinades, or barbecue sauces. And she just started doing it from home, making different flavors in mason jars, leaving them on doorsteps. And somehow, all of a sudden, this little business called Blondie's Not So Simple Syrup came out of nowhere, and she made a logo with like an image of herself for her mason jars, and now she can't keep up with the demand.
Wow.
But it was like turning lemons into lemonade story. You know what I mean? So
great. Yeah.
And that was my highest viewed story to date. Wow. So I'm at almost 5,000 views in 9 weeks. So, the stories they got meat, and they're good, and they make people feel good. And I just want to, spread good news.
That is fantastic. And what does the future hold for the human interest story?
Well, the human interest story has more in its future than I can even imagine myself. I am so excited about the direction it's going and the life that's taking on of it. As soon as we can come out of, as soon as we can start to open up more business-wise, it's gonna take off. But right now, it is what it is. This is just a venture that I started on my own you know, I built everything. I, created everything, put it together. I write all the articles every week. I do have contributors. Kate Fox, who I mentioned before, she's going to be contributing, and you've seen her shows before.
Yes.
Once she can get back up and running, and my friend Molly Altizer, she was actually my journalism professor at Suffolk Community College, and we stayed friends for all these years. She's been like a mentor to me, and she edits all my pieces for me every week. Just because we just all of us journalists just try to help each other out when we can.
Well, that's great. That is it's fantastic work, and as I said, you can find a link to her website, also a link to buy her books. I know a friend of mine last night purchased a book after just seeing the preview.
Oh, great.
So exciting things happening for you, and we hope to read more in the future. Thank you for joining me today, Amy.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. I really appreciate it, and I hope we'll be talking more about more projects in the near future.
I hope so too, and I hope to do more interviews. This is something that I've wanted to do on my channel, as I also wrote for my school newspaper in college.
Yeah.
Always opinion pieces, which are what most of Vinny's takes are related to sports, but I'm going to branch out a little bit and get into more of the human interest story. I thank you for joining us. I hope you got something out of it. And as always, I'm Vinny Vincent for Amy Tangel. God bless you, Amy.
Okay. God bless you too. Thank you.
And God bless America.